Well, hello and happy Sunday. It is self-care Sunday as usual, and I have not come to you guys with a self-care Sunday video or a garden update. So, you guys know that more recently I spend my Sundays in the garden. It's a little chilly right now, so I haven't been in the garden so much, and on top of that, there's not a whole lot going on in the garden. But I am going to go out and give you an update. Specifically, I am going to talk about how I expand my small garden because my garden really is not very large. You may be saying, well, Nick, what are you doing in the house if you're supposed to be showing us something in the garden? The reason I'm in the house is because the first thing about me expanding my space starts as soon as I walk outside the door. So I wanted to share every bit of that with you guys. I'm going to go ahead and head out now so you can see what I'm talking about. All right, y'all, we're headed out. And the number one way that, well, number two way that I expand my small garden is the garden starts as soon as I step outside the back door. This, of course, is not an edible. This is my grandmother's tea plant. It's mine now. She came back after the freeze, thank God, her and her sister. But this table is where I kind of try to root things. So you can see here, this is a cabbage, and I just stuck it in some water. It's got roots. So now I can go and take that and stick it in the garden and it will grow for me. Down here, my avocado farm. Eventually, those will sprout up. I have had success with it now. And once I had success with it one time, I'm like, I can do that. I'm going to keep doing it. So I do start a lot of things here. And then beyond there, is where I have things like herbs and lettuces that I can just step right outside the door, snip, like this needs to be cut back quite a lot. That is some tatsoi, a few mustards, and some other type of lettuce. I don't know, but I just normally come out here and just snip all of that and just take it in the house, wash it, eat it in a little salad. This is lemon balm. And then some of these are seeds that are just now starting to do anything. So like there's beets in there, there's parsley, and this is lettuces. So that's my first tip. Like as soon as I walk out the back door, I am starting with the plantings. Okay. So what I try to do is items that don't require a lot of sun. It's very, very important to know how the sun hits your house. Items that don't require a lot of sun start here. Or seeds, I can start them here as well. This part of our home, this is our patio. I'll show you the whole thing in just a second. But this part of our home only gets evening sun and only partial. So like right now during the wintertime, the sun might come over to almost to where the door is. But during the summertime, the sun will hit all the way across. And when I say all the way across, I mean like, the sun might hit over to say there. And we're like scrambling to get out of the sun. But right now, because it is not daylight savings time, the sun only has a chance to get over maybe so far. So that's why during the wintertime, there's only things here that can tolerate shade. And let's zoom over to the other side. Over there, there's only things that can tolerate shade because there's no sun coming in over there, just the indirect light from out in the yard. Moving back to this side. So I showed you we were just coming out the door. These are things that I can pick and just go right into the house and use. And then here is my standing bed. And this is the same thing. In this bed, sorry for the shadows, we are, like I said, the sunlight is not reaching quite this far over yet. This bed, I only have herbs as well. So I can just literally come out of the back door, pick what I need, go back in. These little pots, of course, are things that I'm starting. Again, I use this whole area for starts because it doesn't take up any space inside the house or in my garden. What you were looking at here, like I said, it's all herbs. This is thyme, oregano. This looks like some cilantro trying to come on up. That's a weed. This is all garlic though, right here. That's all garlic. And then I have some onions over here and all sad little bean plants, but and that was basil that has now been cut back, of course, because it's cold and it's not doing anything. But so my goal is always to keep items in this general area coming out the door to here that are like herbs and lettuces that I can come out, quickly snip, go back in and eat. And then, like I said, starting seeds and trying to root things over on this side. Okay, the number 2 thing that I do, pardon my shadow, in order to expand my small garden, which the main garden we're going to see in just a sec, is I use pots. So over there is a little olive tree in a pot. That little cinder block, I put flowers in there and I can move it around wherever I want to. And then the black pot over there has a moonflower that it has not taken off yet because it's too cold for it. Baby eggplant in a pot. Another baby eggplant in a pot. And now we go over to the main garden. All right, so again, the concept is still the same. I expand my garden. This is my garden. First of all, let's take a look at that. Here's my garden, and it basically spans from one end of the gate to the other end of the gate with a gap in between. Now, different things have gone on over here. At one point, I had my standing bed there. At another point, we had table and chairs here. And then I got these grow bags so that I could move things around. I pretty much like this here a lot better. So that's probably going to stay because it gives me a lot of flexibility. And it gives me the opportunity to grow more because, as you can see, these beds are not that huge. They are 4 feet deep this way. This one is 10 feet long. Same thing. This is 4 feet deep, 4 feet front to back. And this entire thing is 12 feet. But as you can see, that final 2 feet or so, that used to be compost. And now I moved the banana tree over there and I just sit more pots, which again extends my growing space. The 2 pots over there, and I can put as many as I want over here. And then here I have another pot, and this is a self-watering and self-draining pot, and I can grow like multiple things in there. As you can see, there's a tomato which is still doing amazing things. Look at this. That thing is loaded with green tomatoes, just loaded. I'm amazed by that at this time of year. But anyway, there's tomatoes in there, there's beets in there, radishes, and whatever the season is, I can grow multiple things in that pot. That expands my garden far more than just trying to plant more stuff in the little bit of space that I do have. Now, so pots are my number 2. Number 1 was start planting right outside the door using pots. Number 2, use pots and planters and things that wouldn't normally be pots, but you can use them as pots to grow things. Number 3 is I do intensive planting. So this is my greens bed. And as you can see, things are not spaced out. I just kind of broadcast. I did kind of make rows a little bit, but then I just broadcast my seeds along that row. And all I wanted to do was just separate things. So basically over here, I know that I have collards in this section. These tomatoes were already here from the summer. And again, they're fruiting. So I just left them. I'm going to leave them until they stop fruiting. And then maybe pull them up. The kale was already here. I think those are some radishes, and I put those in for companion planting next to the kale and the cucumber. So back over to these greens, I just, like I said, broadcast them. I broadcast my collards here, and then I broadcast, I believe these are turnips in between. They're either turnips or mustards here. And then, as you can see, oh, look at that turnip green. She's pretty. Look at that turnip. How pretty. Anyway, so turnips, I just throw them out. Didn't even bother with pulling over dirt because they only have to be sown maybe like 1/4 of an inch, which, you know, it kind of doesn't matter to put things in nice, neat rows in Houston because the minute it rains, it's kind of going to get scattered all over the place and nothing's going to stay where you put it. And so in between those rows, I just planted like some onions. That's what these are. And they're doing great things. And I can use these tops to cook with. And then just let them continue to grow. And hopefully I'll have bulbs this come spring. What else? So broadcast and intensive planting, that works for me. Again, more pots, like I said before, and these are grow bags. So the great thing about these is that I like to do companion planting, and I'm not so great about planting things where they should go. For example, this area gets pretty much full sun. In the mornings, this bed is shaded by the house. So there's all brassicas over here, and as you can see, they're not doing much right now. But in the mornings, that area is shaded, which is why I put the brassicas on this side. And this side is typically in sun all the time. But right now, because my neighbor's tree needs to be trimmed and it's right adjacent to my garden, that kind of shades this garden a little bit in the afternoons. But that's pretty much the only shade it gets, which is a good thing during the summertime. It's just that during the winter, it, you know, may slow growth a little bit. Love these grow bags. They're actually in my Amazon storefront, but I love these because they're easy to move with these handles here. And if I find that carrots don't do well growing next to garlic and arugula, I can just kind of move them around and shift things, or I can take them even, you know, along the fence here or over to the other side of the yard. I can take them anywhere that I want. So that is another way that I expand my growing area. Then the last thing, the very last thing, is the trellis. So this trellis comes in handy mostly in the summertime when I'm growing a lot of cucumbers and tomatoes, because I can plant, let's say, like 4 cucumber plants here and let them grow up and over. I can plant like 4 tomato plants, let them grow up and over. I use my fence as well as a trellis for beans. You can see I have beans back here. As they start to get bigger, I will just use the fence to hold them up the same way that I'm doing right there with that Roma tomato. So I try to use what I have available to me to expand my growing space. And if I could not put this garden bed out, which I did have to get HOA approval for this because I am in a neighborhood that is very strict. It's HOA, it's a very, very strict, and you're supposed to have a certain number of trees out front and out back. If you're lakeside, you have to have certain things. You have to be careful about what shows where. So I did have to get approval to put this in. But if they had not given me that approval, guess what, you guys? I just would have used straight pots everywhere, which is okay. Like we could have kept our trees in the backyard. We had 2 oaks, but they were sickly. I could have kept those and just planted around the trees, and that would have been pretty. It just would not have given me much space to grow a whole lot of things. So therefore, I would have had to have many, many more pots and containers around my patio or around the house. So that's that. And this is the last thing that I want to show you guys. This little table right here I rebuilt her to be kind of like a potting bench. As you can see, I have some avocados that I was growing there. And the wood from this was from a deck that we tore out. So here, excuse my shadow again, when we walk back over here, this patio ended where the house was. and there was a wood deck that came out here, but it was a little bit of a hazard because you had to step up. So when you came out the door, you had to step up to get onto the deck and then back down to get onto the grass. And several people tripped over it, and they weren't even drinking. So we pulled that out and used the wood for other things like this little table and for actually my standing bed that's over there. So this little table gives me just a place to do some potting, and it's a mess right now because our weather has been crazy, but this gives us a place to do some potting without making a mess over on the patio. And gives us a place to store things sometimes when we need to. Sometimes when I start seeds, it's out here, and then especially during the spring and the summer, if I need to start seeds, I start them out here. So that's pretty much it. So just to recap, the things that I do to expand my garden space. Number one, I start my garden as close to the house as I possibly can with things that I use frequently, like lettuces and herbs, planted on the patio, close to the back door. I use a raised standing garden bed that can be moved around. Again, for things that I use a lot, lettuces, herbs, or something that I don't necessarily need to fuss with a lot, like garlic, that's going to be there for several months before I pick it. That's the first thing. Second thing, containers. Containers are your friend. Whether it's grow bags, whether it's terracotta pots, plastic pots, whatever your preference is. Even the blue and orange buckets, those are great planters as well. So planters and containers, that's number two. And then number three is intensive planting, broadcast planting where you can. And if you need to thin after you broadcast spread your seeds, then you can go in and thin out. But it's harder to plant more and get them going than it is to plant a lot and pull out what starts to choke each other. That's number three. And number four is a trellis that will work for anything that's a climber. That's beans, that's cucumbers, that's even squashes can grow on a trellis, can be trained to grow on a trellis. Tomatoes, indeterminate tomatoes, things like that. So those are four ways that you can expand your gardening space for next to nothing, really. Not a lot of money. My biggest expense is my biggest expense is my soil. Which we've talked about that before. If you want to know more about why my soil is my biggest expense and what I use, please let me know and I will be glad to do that. I do compost. I did show you my composter. But beyond that, the soil does erode, so that has to be refreshed and replenished every year. I do it pretty much once a year, sometimes once every season. So that's pretty much it. That's how I expand my small garden. Because honestly, my garden is less than 100 square feet. I think I calculated maybe 88 square feet that my garden is. So if I can do this, if I can grow food for my family in 88 square feet, you can certainly do it. And if it's just you or just two, I have two large guys. I have a basketball player in the house, and my husband is not a small guy. He's very fit and athletic. And if I can feed the three of us in this 88 square foot garden, I guarantee that you can do this, guys. And of course, if you have questions or, need some encouragement, I'm your girl. That's what I'm here for. It's a community. It's not a competition. So that's it, you guys, for expanding the small backyard garden. Till next time, you guys. Bye.